Good morning, Booth Dog here. Happy Thursday. As we continue to spend most of our time at home, I continue to explore a plethora of musical instruments. Today I've been playing this lovely frog. It was a delightful little gift from my taiko sensei several years ago. Anyway, I love the sound of it. I hope it brings you a little fleeting joy in the midst of everything that's going on today. Let's bring Mr. Boothman on. Get started. Good morning. Happy Thursday. We are done with new content for the year. I know some of us are overjoyed at that idea. Some of us are a little distraught about this idea. I know, Darren, try not to cry. Today and tomorrow, actually, so later today and then tomorrow more generally, AP is going to announce exactly what format the AP exams this year will take. So ordinarily, right now we are starting our AP review. So I would go through the format of the tests, how they score it, all that breakdown. But since it's a little different this year, I'm going to wait and do that next week. Instead, today and tomorrow, I really just kind of want to take a little bit of a pause. Okay, so no new content, like I said. Today and tomorrow, I kind of just want to briefly summarize, at least in these video lessons, all the concepts that we've learned this year. So I have a big list here. We're just going to go through them. So as we're going through it, you can make a note. Oh, I completely forgot what 3.2 was talking about. So jot that down and you know where to focus your studying over the next few weeks. Hopefully many of you have your binders. If you have not, please, I need you to take these binders off my hands. I don't want a trunk full of binders anymore. Look through your notes, go back and do some practice problems on your own. You have tons of resources. Watch those free AP videos that College Board is putting out. And then again, starting next week, we will jump into our own review and practice, okay? So today we're going to talk about all of our concepts from last semester, semester 1. Your exit ticket today will be to submit any major questions you have from first semester content after reviewing your notes and tests and problem sets by midnight tonight. Also next Monday, I will share more information, so stop asking me, about your exam retakes and problem set corrections and any major last assignments that you will have for this year. I am looking at a couple of major review assignments that you'll be working on over the next few weeks. Okay. Let's jump into our semester 1 recap. So unit 1 was all about limits and continuity. I'm skipping over unit 0. That was your prerequisites from pre-calc. Unit 1, limits and continuity. So we talked first, what is a limit? How do we calculate limits? Then we looked at limits involving infinity. So these ended up being our same rules as our asymptotes from pre-calc. We talked about what continuity is. Remember, limit from the left equals limit from the right equals the function value. And then we talked about rates and how we can apply limits to find tangent lines. So that was our original definition of the slope of a tangent line, is using our limit and the difference quotient. After that, we jumped into units 2 and 3. Remember, those were kind of combined, all about the derivative. So we started by defining what the derivative is. It is just this limit of the difference quotient. It's the slope at a point. It's our instantaneous rate of change. We talked about what it means for a function to have a derivative. That means for a function to be differentiable. Remember, continuity or differentiability implies continuity, but continuity does not imply differentiability. We talked about the different rules for differentiation, like power rule, quotient rule, product rule. We looked at special types of functions, exponentials, logs, and trig derivatives. Those were kind of just things that you needed to memorize. Hopefully you still know them. If not, make sure you go back and review. We talked additionally, somewhere in there, we also talked about the inverse trig derivatives. Remember I told you You would need to know those. There's a possibility that those will show up on the AP exam and your final. That is still true. So those are things you just need to memorize. Please go back and review them. Then we talked about the chain rule, how we take the derivative of a function that is composed with another function. And finally, we talked about how to implicitly differentiate a function when it's not explicitly defined as y equals some function of x. The rest of last semester, units 4 and 5, is all about applications of the derivative. So 4.1 was simple applications. That's where we talked about our basic motion problems, right? We start with position. The derivative of a position function is the velocity function. The derivative of velocity is acceleration, and so on. We talked about everyone's favorite, related rates. I know, practice. You know, if this year's AP exam really is a bunch of FRQs, part of me says there's a good chance that you're going to see a related rates problem on there. So be ready, please go back and review that section. 4.3 was pretty straightforward. We talked about local linearity. So when we zoom in on a function, no matter how much of a curve this function is, if we zoom in enough, it begins to look linear. So we can approximate that function, at least for that area around where we've zoomed in, using a tangent line. That's all that idea was. And then finally, we looked at L'Hopital's rule. That's how to take a limit if, when we evaluate for this limit, we end up with 0 over 0 or infinity over infinity. Both of these are indeterminate forms. So please review L'Hopital's rule as well. That will likely show up. Finally, Unit 5 is all about extrema, so extreme values, maxes and mins. We looked at several ways of finding these extreme values. First, the first derivative test. Okay, that's where we had to make our sign chart and we have to justify our answer. And then we looked at the second derivative test, another way of finding extreme values. Also requires a sign chart, but of course we're using the second derivative for this information and justifying again. 5.3 was all about the mean value theorem, the MVT. Review your notes. That was a pretty straightforward concept. And then finally, optimization, probably your second favorite topic from last semester after related rates, of course. Optimization just relies on being able to find these maxes and mins, setting up a function to find those maxes and mins, and then evaluating accordingly. All right, that was a lot that we studied last semester. Like I told you at the start of this semester, last semester was a lot busier than second semester is. So there's a lot that we did there. Luckily, I think we've continued to use a lot of these properties, a lot of these concepts in our studies this semester, so it's not like you've completely forgotten everything. I think calculus in particular tends to build upon itself, even more so than other math courses. So you might just need to go back and look at some of those definitions, some of those terms again, some of those special derivatives. Submit your question, your exit ticket by midnight tonight. Tomorrow, we'll look at semester 2 content. Join our Google Meet with any questions. Otherwise, have a great day. All right, well, I can never get over how brilliant Mr. Boothman is. Anyway, hope you're enjoying your lessons. Keep it up. Keep pushing yourself. Join our Google Meet with any questions you have, and I'll see you tomorrow.